Obviously, if you do need to speak, then, as you know, press your space bar. So yes, I thought we would do a few, just a sort of few little things in sitting and then move on to some hands and knees things. So from cobbler pose, if you've been here already and you've got a sense, really I suppose a sense of how this is feeling into the inner thighs and the hip joints. From here, surprise, surprise, we're going to come over into pinwheel. So let one knee come on top of the other and slide your top leg back. And start to do a little bit of circling here. So I think very often in my own practice, I start in cobbler pose and pinwheel because I find they're so helpful for releasing my hips and my lower back. So you can do a bit of circling, and you can also do the variation where you give yourself a hug, if particularly if your upper back and your shoulders are feeling stiff. And you can let your head hang forwards a bit. And just carry on cycling. Hi Sharon, we've just started. We were in cobbler pose and then going on into one side of pinwheel. So yeah, this is an option to give yourself a bit of a hug. And so yeah, during the Christmas break, I've been starting like this quite often. And then we will come into our pinwheel forward bend. And I'd like you to have sort of three quiet breaths here. So you're going to fold your body over the knee that's going out to the side. And if your head touches the ground, that's great. It's nice to have your elbows on the ground. And then tuning into your breathing and just giving yourself time to feel the movement of 3 breaths through your body. So receiving an inhalation, letting the out breath leave. Receiving an inhalation, letting the out breath leave. So even though we're not starting lying down, we can have this focus on our breath. So one more cycle of breath. And often I find once I've focused in on my breath, I want to stay there with it, but we will then walk our hands back in towards us and lean back on your arms and lengthen your legs out and take them a little bit wide, not too wide, and bounce your knees on the ground. Just sort of ease the legs out. And then just do a little bit of pointing your toes and pointing your heels. So you can slide the heels away, point the toes. So we're just mobilizing the ankles a little bit here. And then we'll come on into the second side of pinwheel. So you can slide your feet back into cobbler pose. It's quite interesting to do this movement, leaning back onto your hands. And then let yourself come onto side 2 of pinwheel. So let your knee come over, slide your top knee back. And again, come to a bit of circling. And see how this feels. So this is an opportunity to, as I was saying, release the hip joints, maybe ease into the lower back. If you like, you can do the option where you give yourself a hug, you let your head fall forwards. This is quite nice if your shoulders are feeling stiff. So possibly all these things are feeling stiff at the moment. There's the cold, there's all the, it's a difficult time. So we can do lots of nice things in yoga to hopefully help ourselves feel better. But just a little more circling. And you can release your arms, and when you're ready, you're going to turn towards this knee that's going out to the side and fold the weight of your body down through that leg. And again, like we did on the other side, have 3 cycles of breath where you're just really absorbed in your breathing, letting your body soften and settle, receiving an inhalation, letting the out breath leave. That's nice. So maybe one more cycle of breath, just really feeling the in-breath come in and giving time for your out-breath to leave. And when you've felt those 3 cycles of breath, then walk your hands in towards you And then this time again, lean back on your arms, and you can just see how it feels to take your legs a little bit wider. Again, without pushing anything, particularly because it's cold. You could stay leaning back on your arms. We're not going to stay here for long, so just a moment or two of legs long and wide, leaning back as much as you like. And then Marie, this is something particularly for you. From here, we're going to cross our ankles, yeah? So even if you don't normally sit cross-legged, you are sitting cross-legged now. And you're doing a little bit of circling. So this will take us back, yes, take us back to unit 4, some of us. So a little bit of circling, and it might feel quite strange. I don't tend to sit cross-legged. I tend to sit maybe in half lotus. So yeah, but again, this is quite good for the hips. And what I'd like you to do from here is see how it feels to fold forwards a little bit. And you might not be able to go very far. And obviously don't go far if it's putting any pressure on your knees, but it can be quite nice for the lower back if we fold forwards. And if it's easy, then go further forwards. And when you've just seen how it feels to go forwards, then walk your hands back in towards you. And we're going to do 5 of our kapala bhati breaths here. So this is where we, just thinking I need a tissue, we bring one hand to our belly, and these short, sharp little exhalations where we breathe out through the nose and our belly moves back. So let's just try. Let a breath come in. And then lean back. Change the cross of your legs. Now we will try with our kapala bhati on the other side. We'll try through the mouth just in case anyone's not so familiar with it. And come to a little bit more circling now you've changed the cross of your legs. So in kapala bhati, we're trying to sort of coordinate the action of the belly moving back with our breath leaving us in a very sort of short, sharp way. And I've been working on this over the Christmas holidays. So again, when you've circled a bit, see what it's like to fold forwards for a moment. I've been working on this over the Christmas holidays as one of many things I've been doing to try and get my abdominals a bit more in shape. And I was saying this, I think some people, if anyone was here on Monday, I was saying this, I overheard my children talking in the kitchen when I was doing some yoga the other day, saying, oh, women don't have abdominals. I was like, hang on a minute. Yes, we do. So come back upright. Again, bring your hand on your belly. And this time we'll try blowing out through our mouth 5 times and trying to feel the belly moves back as we blow out. So let a breath come in first of all. So kapalabhati is through the nose, but sometimes it's easier to get the feeling through the mouth. Now, let's come on to hands and knees and start to move here. So come and settle down on hands and knees. Feel your hands on the floor beneath your shoulders, your knees on the floor beneath your hips. And then start to move in your cat movement. So I want you to just bring your attention to the middle of yourself. And particularly, how does your lower back feel as you round your back to the ceiling, as you dip your spine down to the floor? And you can carry on with some cat, obviously letting your breath flow through you as it wants to. And you can also add in a little bit of tail wagging if you like. So I do quite like myself to move between these two. So if my lower back feels tight in cat, I might come then to a bit of a, wagging my tail, imagining I have a tail, wagging it from side to side, or swishing it if I'm a cat or a fish. And then come back to a bit more cat. And just see how that feels. So in your own time, you can move a little bit between cat and between tail wagging, with the focus on releasing through the middle of ourselves. And for me, it's always my lower back that can feel a bit tight here. And I'd like to let it feel a bit easier. And then from here, we're going to, when you're ready, you can carry on with a bit more cat and a bit more tail wagging. But when you're ready, you're going to see how it feels to move into dog pose. So at this point, you might want to take your socks off. You're going to tuck your toes under, Keep resting through your hands, big handprints on the floor, exhaling, rocking your hips back over your heels. Coming into dog pose and seeing how your body feels in dog today. Very nice. Letting your head go, bending one knee, bending both knees. Good. So in our first dog, it might feel amazing. It might not feel so amazing. So yeah. Good. You can stay in this dog as long as you like. And from dog, you're going to be folding down for, again, another sort of 2 or 3 quiet breaths in child pose. So there's an opportunity to come back to your breathing, or in kneeling if you prefer. Just this opportunity to come back to your breathing. So you can either kneel up or you can fold forwards in child. And again, gather your attention in. So feel the breath come in. Feel the breath leave you. And then come back onto hands and knees when you're ready. And come back to a few more cycles of cat and a little bit more tail wagging. And what I'd like you to think about now on hands and knees is, as you do your cat, as you do a bit of tail wagging, is eventually to end up in, what would I say, a sort of neutral position where your back is fairly flat like a table. It's neither dipping or rounding. And carrying on with the animals today, we're going to move into fox pose. So fox pose is the one where you lengthen one leg back behind you and you take the opposite arm forwards. And you're trying to feel long from your front fingers to your back heel. You could try pointing your back toes as well. So it's quite nice to sort of point your toes and point your heel in fox. But what we're mainly looking for here is stability, yeah? So stability through the middle of ourselves and length from the foot to the fingertips, breathing, trying to feel steady. And you can swap sides when you're ready. I'm always surprised how this one is, quite challenging. Well, I find it quite challenging. So coming on to side 2 of fox, how is it to steady here? Remember, you can be either stretching into your heel or your toes or alternating between the two, but trying to have this sense of length from your fingertip through to your foot. Good. And then from fox, you can bring both hands back down. And again, you can come into dog pose and have a little lengthen out in dog pose where we're in, I suppose we're in a more supported position because we have both feet on the floor. Very nice dogs, lovely. Good. Good, yes, and that's a good idea, May, if you need to sort of ease your wrists out. Lovely. So in dog pose, same as before, bending one knee, bending both knees, releasing your head, resting through your arms. When you need to give the hands and the wrists a bit of a rest, fold down into child pose or kneeling. Come back to the breath. So again, for a moment, we come back to just settling quietly, to feeling the in-breath filling us, to feeling the out-breath leaving us. Maybe have one more cycle of breath and just really give yourself time to feel both the inhalation and to let the out-breath empty you completely. And we're going to come back onto hands and knees again. And again, if you like, it's entirely up to you. Be towards the front of your mat because in a moment we're going to come into plank pose. But again, if you'd like to do a few cycles of cat or a bit of tail wagging first, Please do. And I always, it's good to come back to these movements, because hopefully what we feel is more mobility around the middle of ourselves. So maybe some of that tightness we might feel in the lower back has eased out. A little bit of cat, a little bit of tail wagging. And then when you're ready, seeing how it feels to come into plank pose. So keeping your shoulders over your wrists, lengthening one leg back and then the other. So as you know, when we come into plank pose, our abdominals that we do have will start to work, because they're sort of stopping our pelvis dropping down to the ground. So we know when we're in this long line of plank because we feel the abdominals. Whenever you've had enough, do you come down? I know some of you are, yes, mega plank pose people. We're going to do another plank in a moment. So you can come down, you can sit back over your heels, you can give your hands a bit of a shake out. So if you don't like kneeling, just be in this up kneeling. And also you can bring the backs of your hands together and give your hands a little wiggle. Okay, so we're going to do another plank pose and then take that plank into dog and then into a forward bend and up into standing. So you can come back, that's right, yes, back, wrists under the shoulders, feeling that support of your arms, moving into plank for a couple of breaths, or more than that if you like, and from plank on into dog when you're ready. When you come from plank into dog, you might find that the dog pose is quite long and you might like to walk your feet in a little bit, or you might enjoy that long dog. So that's completely up to you. Of course, bending one knee, bending both knees in dog pose. And it might be that you enjoy dog pose now because, we've done a few, maybe feeling a bit more pleasurable. And then from dog pose, we walk our hands in towards our feet and we end up in a forward bend. If you need to, it's better for your lower back to bend your knees and rest your elbows on your thighs. Please do that. And then we'll roll up into standing or walk the hands up the thighs to support the back. We'll arrive up in standing. Lovely. So a bit of a sequence we're going to do in standing today, and it's something I've been working with over the holidays. But first of all, bend your knees. So in standing, bend your knees and give your pelvis a wiggle. So this is we were doing this at the end of last year, and it's sort of still one of my favourite things. So this sequence we're going to do is actually something I did on one of my yoga videos about 3 years ago, and I'd completely forgotten. So, and then I practiced it quite a lot over the holidays. So I'm going to start, and you don't need to at this point, I'm going to start standing facing the long edge of my mat in the centre, but unless that makes it easier for you to see the screen, don't worry, you don't need to do that at the moment. So you're going to start with your hands in prayer pose and your feet settle down a little distance apart. So just let yourself arrive here for a moment. But yeah, be where you can see the screen easily, that's fine. And you're going to let a breath come in. And as you exhale, take your arms down and then up. Drop your shoulders away from your ears. And then as you exhale, you're going to curl forwards into a forward bend. And again, if you want to rest your elbows on your thighs, you can do, or you can release your arms down to the ground and just have a couple of breaths in your forward bend, bending your knees as much as you like, letting your head go. And then as you exhale, you're going to sink into your heels and roll back up into standing. Good, and then back in standing, we're going to exhale and take the arms up. And we're going to do a little bit of reaching into one arm. Now, first of all, I'd like you to just try reaching up without shifting your weight below your waist. So this is different than what we've been doing through most of the last year on Zoom. We've been shifting our weight, but I just would like you to see what's it like to reach up. But you're staying pretty steady below the waist. That's it. So sort of one arm reaches and then the other. Okay, a couple more times. And let the arms come down, give them a little swing. That's it. And then take the arms up again. And this time, as you reach into one arm, you can shift your weight into the reaching arm leg, which is what we've been doing more over the last few months. But both are good. And if you like from here, you can reach up into one arm and then catch the other hand around that wrist. So you sort of draw yourself up and over. Again, if you don't like that, you don't need to do that. And you can come back to the center. You can do it on the other side. Good. And then whenever you've had enough with your arms up, you're going to come back to the center and release forwards into a forward bend again. So your elbows can be on your thighs, or you can release your arms down to the ground. Nice and floppy, good. Lovely, rooted into your heels in your forward bend. And then let a breath come in, and as you exhale, you can sink into your heels and roll back up into standing. When you arrive in standing, take your feet a little wider apart, not massively wide, but maybe like the sort of, if you're facing the short edge of your mat, the width of the narrow edge of your mat. Sorry, and we come into these side lengthening movements. And again, it's very much up to you. I mean, I like this feeling of shifting my weight into my reaching up arm side, but it's up to you. You don't have to do that. And also in these ones, you can go from side to side, or you can stay in one side for a few breaths. And it's good just to be led by what feels right for your body today. So generally, I tend to move from side to side. Sometimes I quite like to stay for a breath or two. And just, how is it to stay here and breathe? Feeling wide and long through one side. The other arm is heavy and floppy. So we've got this contrast between the two sides of the body. When you've had enough, or you feel you've sort of balanced yourself out, then you're going to fold forwards with your feet this distance apart. And see how that feels. Again, you can rest your elbows on your thighs with your knees bent, or you can release your arms to the floor. If you like, you can shift your weight from side to side a bit in this forward bend by bending one knee and bending the other. That's entirely up to you. So if that feels nice, that is an option, but you also might just like to stay sort of steady. Keep your weight in your heels rather than taking any weight into your hands. Good. Lovely. And then if you have been going side to side, maybe just settle in the center, sink into your heels and roll up into standing. Now, at this point, if you're facing the short edge of your mat, you will need to move around so you're facing the long edge of your mat, because we're going to take our feet wider. Okay. And from here, I don't teach this often, but I've been doing this a lot. From here, you're going to turn one foot out a bit. It doesn't have to go all the way out to line up with the mat. You're going to turn that foot out a bit and bend that knee. So the most important thing is that your knee is bending over the midline of your foot, and your back foot also stays planted. So we're actually in this warrior two position, which I've come to really enjoy. So we're looking for this feeling of being very steady and planted below the waist. And then what was I thinking above the waist yesterday? Serene, floaty arms, serene. So planted below the waist, and this feeling of serenity, if possible, in the upper body. And I think at the moment, maybe this is why I like this pose in these uncertain, unserene times. And from here, we can then move into a side lengthening movement. So we lean towards the bent leg and the elbow rests there. And then our top arm, the back arm, sort of reaches over into this side lengthening movement. So we're long through one side of the body. Good. Have a couple of breaths there. And then from here, we're going to be, and you'll have to let your back foot swivel as we do this. So from here, we're going to start to turn towards the front leg. and bend the back knees. So we come down into this position where which some of you might remember from last year, where we were doing a twist here. So we've got our back knee under our hip joints and our front knee under our heel. And you want to make sure in this position that you've got your hip width sideways distance, otherwise you're going to feel very wobbly. And then we turn towards our front leg. And I'm just going to swivel around on my mat, otherwise I won't be able to see you. So turn towards your front leg. And so some of you will probably remember we were doing this one a bit towards the end of last year, turning towards the front leg, coming into this twist in the upper body, letting the back, that's it, letting the back arm release. The front arm rests on the bent leg. Good, good, very nice. And then you can untwist. And you're then going to fold your body forwards over the front leg. And then you're going to tuck your back toes under and walk the back leg away into a lunge. And have a few breaths in your lunge. Good, so just giving the weight of the pelvis down to the ground at the moment. And it's up to you. You might decide that you just want to do a normal lunge. But if you wanted to add in a twist in your lunge, you're going to keep the opposite hand down on the floor, opposite hand to the foot, and bring the same hand as front foot, onto the back of your pelvis. So you can turn towards your front leg once more. And have your back toes tucked under, because from here, you're then going to stretch into your back heel and let your back knee come off the ground. And you can then take your top arm to reach forwards in the opposite direction to your heel. So we're doing this lunge twist, turning towards our front leg, letting our back knee come off the ground. So this is quite strong, so you don't have to stay there long. If you don't like it, come out. And just have a couple of breaths there. And then let the back knee come down, let your arm come down. Untwist. And we're going to, from here, either directly from your lunge or coming onto hands and knees, we're going to come into dog pose, forward bend, back into standing. So you can go straight from lunge into a dog pose or from hands and knees. Have a few breaths in your dog. Your back somewhere normal, familiar. And from dog, then walking your hands in towards your feet, arriving in a forward bend. Letting your head go. Exhaling, rolling up into standing, or walking your hands up the front of your body. And then coming back. So we're going to then do the whole of that sequence, ending up with doing the lunges on the other side. So we're coming back to the very beginning movement. So settle down with your feet a little distance apart, in the middle of your mat if you're facing the long edge, and with your hands in prayer pose. So it's going to be easier on this side because you know what you're doing, and we're coming back to the very sort of simple things. So feel your footprints on the ground, feel the contact of your hands, let a breath come in, and as you exhale, take your arms down and then up. Drop your shoulders away from your ears, and then as you exhale, you're going to curl forwards into a forward bend. Elbows can come onto the thighs. Or you can release all the way forwards, let the head go. Feel your heels rooted into the ground. Big exhalation. And then on another out breath, you can sink into your heels, roll back up into standing. In standing, we can exhale and let the arms come up. And then we're going to come into these reaching movements again. And it's up to you. You can move below the waist. You can not move below the waist. You can play around with both. And you can also come to reaching through one arm and then catching the other hand around that wrist and drawing yourself up and over. So you've just got a few choices here of what you like, what feels good to you today. And obviously, if you've reached up through one arm and caught round that wrist, do the same thing on the other side. Reach up, Catch your hand around your wrist, that's it. Lengthen yourself up and over. Have a few more breaths here if you like, and when you've had enough of arms up, release the arms down, all the way down into a forward bend. Let your head go, sink into your heels. Down in your forward bend. Again, you can have your elbows on your thighs if you like. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. And then from your forward bend, sinking into your heels, rolling up into standing. Good. And then stepping your feet a little wider apart on the mat. So again, this is where we're perhaps, our feet are as wide as the narrow edge of the mat, or thereabouts. So not massively wide, but not too tiny. And we come back into these side lengthening movements where one arm comes up, the other arm's heavy and floppy. We can move from side to side, or we can stay. And we're trying to feel this contrast between one side of the body lengthening and the other side narrowing and softening. So the sort of stretch on one side, the sort of maybe softening on the other. We might stay here and have a couple of breaths. And again, if you get tired of your arms being up, you've had enough of this one, you're going to come back into a forward bend with your feet this distance apart. You're going to see how that feels. So again, you could come to the halfway point where your elbows are on your thighs, or you can release your arms down to the ground. I do find in this one, with my feet a bit wider apart, I tend to have my knees more bent, but that might just be me. And you can also bend one knee more, so that's sort of shifting your weight from side to side. So that can feel really nice. Or you might just like to sort of be quiet in the middle. If you're shifting your weight from side to side, then just make sure your knees are happy with that. I find sometimes they get a bit grumbly. And make sure your weight stays in your heels. Yeah, a very noble Mel to start, put add some squats in. Very pleased to see that. I'm sure it's good for your lower back. Okay, and then if you'll be going from side to side, maybe pause in the middle for a breath, and then sink into both heels evenly, roll back up into standing. A little shake out of your legs. And then this is when we take our feet wider apart, so you might need to turn the other way round on your mat. So feet wider apart, and you're going to then be turning, we're going the other way. Line up with the edge of the mat. What's most important is when I bend my knee, my knee bends over my footprint. And then my back foot stays nice and planted, and we come into this, rather beautiful warrior pose where we feel very steady and planted below the waist, and perhaps this feeling of, softness, serenity in the arms. What you can do in this one is look forwards along your front arm. This is the bent leg arm. So you're looking sort of towards your middle finger. If that feels okay in your neck. Have a breath or two there. And then from here, we move into the side lengthening movement. So we start to fold over the bent knee leg. We rest our elbow on that thigh and our top arm reaches over. So we've got this side lengthening movement here. So yes, one which we haven't done for a very, very long time. It's quite a nice place to feel long through the top side of the body. And then if you remember from here, what we were then doing was swiveling around so that we can bring our back knee onto the ground and bending the front knee more. So we come into this position. Again, I'm going to turn around so I can twist towards you. So we've got our front knee over our front heel, our back knee under our hip joint. There's sort of right angles here, I think, without getting too mathematical. And you've got enough sideways space that you don't feel wobbly. And then we turn towards our top leg. Try to give away the back arm. So the back arm is either heavy and floppy, or the hand is resting on the pelvis. That's it. So we're thinking about the back shoulder moving back, but also down. And I do find this twist really nice, sort of to open across the front of my chest and to feel I'm really moving in my upper back. So just have a sense of how this feels. Good. Very nice. And then we untwist and we fold forwards over the front leg. And then we tuck the toes under in the back leg and walk that back leg back into lunge. So we've still got our front knee over our front heel, but we've got much more of a stretch now through the front of the back leg thigh. And we can have some nice breaths in lunge, exhaling, giving the weight of the pelvis down. And then if you like, you can take this into your lunge stretch. So you keep the opposite hand on the floor. If it's hard to plant that hand on the floor, you might find that you want to put something under it, or you might want to have your knuckles on the floor. And then the other hand comes onto the back of your pelvis. And we turn to start with towards our front leg again. And then, oh joy, we let the back knee come off the ground. We really stretch into the back heel. So it's a big stretch through that bottom thigh. And then the top arm reaches in the opposite direction to the heel. So we've got this long feeling of lengthening from the back heel through to the fingertips. Probably don't want to stay here too long. Good. And then we come down, we untwist, we come down. We're going to come again into dog pose, forward bend, standing. So either straight from lunge into dog or from hands and knees into dog pose. And enjoy just being in the sort of quiet, familiar place of dog pose, bending your knees as much as you like. And then slowly walking your hands in towards you, into your forward bend, letting your head go in your forward bend. And then rolling up into standing. And then just come to settle in standing. Yes, if you want to have a little shake out, have a little shake out. Come to settle in standing. And we're going to come back to our kapala bhati breath in standing, which can be quite a helpful place to actually feel it. So what I'd like you to do is bring one hand or both hands onto your belly and just settle in standing with your hands on your belly. Kapala bhati in standing helps us to feel quite rooted into our footprints. We're going to do it first breathing out through the mouth. So we try and make that connection with, like you're blowing out a candle through your mouth, your belly moves back. Let's try 5 after an in-breath. And then I'd like you to try 2 more sets of 5, but try doing it through your nose. If you get confused, come back to blowing out through your mouth. So we'll try another 5, let a breath come in. And have another inhalation and 1 last. So 5 more, hands on the belly. Try to feel your belly moves back as you blow out through your nose. Okay, and then just have a little shake out of arms and legs. And I just thought before we come out of standing, I'd like us to all come into a balance and just something quite quiet. So if there's something you particularly would like to do in terms of quiet balance, I was going to suggest tree poses. It's familiar to all of us. But if you'd prefer to do this sort of stalk pose where you're catching one foot, if you'd prefer to be up on the balls of both feet rather than on one foot, it's entirely up to you. So just sort of think about what balance you could do now that would feel quite sort of familiar and quietening for you. So if you're going to come stand on one foot, you could start by rocking your weight, closing your eyes and rocking your weight from side to side. And just deciding which foot you're going to stand on first. Once you've decided which foot you're going to stand on, then open your eyes and start to transfer your weight onto that foot, shift your weight over. And then if you're coming into tree pose, however you're going to organise your foot, it could be on your ankle, it could be higher up. And just again, don't feel at this point you have to push yourself. It's more about, can we find a place where we can be steady and quiet? If we don't feel steady and quiet, that's also fine. Yes, hands at the breastbone, at the heart, is really helpful for steadying. And if you feel that you want to reach your arms up, that can feel very nice and expansive. You don't have to. Make sure your shoulders stay dropped and relaxed. Lovely. Very nice. And it's fine if you come out, you can come back into it. Maybe after that feeling of expansion, you want to gather your hands back into prayer pose at your heart. Good. Lovely. Well done, everyone. And have a little shake out. We'll try the other side. And yes, it's not always easy to feel quiet and steady, particularly at the moment with life being a bit uncertain. So let's try seeing how it feels to bring the weight onto the other leg. And again, remember, you can have if you're doing tree pose, your foot can be on your ankle, or you could have your heel just above your knee, or you can catch your ankle and bring your foot higher on your thigh. And just that feeling of sort of quiet settling. And not trying to get anywhere. If you feel a bit wobbly on this side, you might just want to bring your foot lower or stay with your hands in prayer pose. Yes, and if you get that impulse to take your arms up, that sense of wanting to feel expansive, which is, I think, really nice this time of year when maybe at the moment when we feel alive is less expansive. It can be good. Beautiful. And then perhaps that just gathering the hands back into the heart. Okay. Very, very nice. Yeah. Well done, everyone. That's so lovely. I think side 2, everyone seemed very quiet in, so well done. We're going to make our way down into child pose from the backs of the mats. We're going to go through a forward bend. We're going to take up, sort of start in prayer pose and swing our arms. We're going to go through a forward bend in dog pose. And if you fancy doing your one-legged dogs in this dog, you could do that. And then down into child pose. So hands in prayer pose at your heart again. Standing at the back of your mat, let a breath come in. As you exhale, take your arms down and then up. Let a breath come in, and then as you exhale, curling down into your forward bend. From your forward bend, walking your hands forwards into dog pose. And if you want to do your one-legged dog poses, and in fact, I've just remembered, rather than going straight into child, we're going to come into kneeling first. And just do one last cycle of kapala bhati. But yes, if you fancy doing your one-leg dog poses, they might be quite nice after those wide leg things we were doing. You can, as you know, you can take your leg up being long. You can keep your pelvis level or roll your pelvis. I like to take my leg up long, roll my pelvis, stretch into my heel. But you can also bend your top knee. Maybe not wants to stay in for a really long time, unless it's feeling, just what you want to do. If it's feeling an endurance, then it's not time to stay there a long time. Yes, beautiful, very nice. When you end up in kneeling, I thought we would do 5 more cycles of kapala bhati breath here, just to really settle the pelvis before we fold into child pose, or if you prefer to stay in kneeling for a couple of quiet breaths. So again, you can bring your hand on your belly. You can either breathe out through your mouth or your nose, whichever you prefer. So let a breath come in. And then if you are going forwards into a forward bend, obviously take your knees a bit wider apart if you like. But see if you can keep your pelvis feeling really heavy and rooted as you fold your body forwards. And then wherever you are, whether you're staying in kneeling or you folded into a forward bend, you're just going to have 3 quiet cycles of breath. Come back to where we were towards the beginning of class, feeling the breath coming in, feeling the breath leaving. And maybe one more cycle of breath where you feel that sense of receiving the inhalation, and then the out breath leaves you slowly, slowly. And from child pose, I thought we would revisit our cobbler pose and our pinwheel. I had a whole little sequence we were going to do, but I'm not quite sure we've got time for all of it, so maybe I will save that for next week. But we'll do a little slightly amended sequence in pinwheel. So come into cobbler pose, lean back on your hands and just see how it feels. Good. And from leaning back on your hands, you can also see how it feels to walk your hands in and catch a hold of your feet or your ankles. And if you like, you could do a little bit of rocking from side to side. So this one's always more pleasant if we've got a bit more padding around the bottom, which might be the case after Christmas. Good. Okay, we'll come back to cobbler pose in between the sides of pinwheel. So from here, let your top knee come over. Let your top leg slide back. And in fact, what we're going to do in pinwheel this time is something that we were, so you can do a little bit of circling first of all, but something we were doing, I think at the end of last year, which is leaning. So leaning onto so the knee that's going out to the side, leaning onto that hand, and then with the other leg, starting to draw a big circle. And today I'm sort of interested in also taking the leg back. So if we circle the leg back, where does it go to? And if we circle the foot this way, it can cross all the way over the knee. So what's it like when you slide your toes back? Some of you might even find you can catch your foot behind you and there's a bit of a stretch through your thigh. Yeah, so just a bit of this sort of big circle. What's that like? And we'll maybe do a bit more of this next week. And eventually I would like you, which is what we were doing towards the end of last year, is to slide this foot all the way around. So we come, oh yes, into our cow legs. Now at this point, if you're really still leaning over here and the top leg sit bone is not on the ground, there are a couple of options. So either your foot can come and stand here, or some of you might want to, Marie, as you were doing, lengthen out your bottom leg. Yeah, so just make sure you're as comfortable as you can be. Have a little wiggle in your cow legs, yeah, a little bit of a wiggle. And then we're going to turn towards the top leg. So, yeah, turning towards the top leg. And drop the shoulders. And in fact, it might be nice just to sort of turn in both directions a couple of times. I'm thinking before you settle, turn towards the top leg. Now, this is so different for all of us. So it might be at this point you're just desperate to come out of your cow legs, in which case lean back on your hands, uncross your legs. But for some of us, cow legs, it's a really good place to try moving into sort of a half lotus or even lotus run. So it could be that you just see what's it like to slide that top leg back across towards a sort of half lotus position. But again, and you can be leaning back if that helps. But again, if you're just thinking, no, I need to come out of this, then do so. Good. If this is really easy for you, your half lotus, you can try folding forwards for a couple of breaths. but only if it's easy. Otherwise, if you're thinking, oh my goodness, lengthen your legs out, give them a bit of a roll. That's it. Okay. But again, so these movements are, you know, sort of really good to visit often. So if they're feeling quite stiff, if cow legs is feeling rather an ordeal, it probably is the time of year and the cold and maybe the Christmas break. So come back into cobbler pose now. Let's just see how cobbler pose feels. Good. We can come back to some more rocking. I think that's nice. Good. So this is where we shift our weight onto one sit bone and then the other. And then we can also do the sort of side bending, leaning in cobbler pose. So where we lean onto one arm and our body moves from side to side, and then we can add the top arm in. If you haven't done enough side bending already today, it's probably quite nice after all the side bending we did. But I think it feels a little bit easier. Good. Very nice. Okay. Let's come on into side 2 of pinwheels. So let your knees go in the other direction and slide your top leg back. And do a little bit of circling here. Circling and settling. Again, if you like the one where you're giving yourself a hug, that feels nice for the shoulders, you can do that. And then as we did on the other side, we're going to explore moving the back leg. So we lean, well, however it works for you, we're going to lean our weight into the leg here. So the knee that's going out to the side, lean your weight into that leg and onto that arm. And then we're thinking about what is it like to draw this big circle with our back leg foot. So we can send the knee back behind us and we can draw this circle where off, and then as our leg sort of crosses the other leg, it's the foot that's leading. But most of the time, the foot is behind the knee. But as we sort of cross over, the foot comes forwards of the knee. So you can see as you go back, where does this leg go to? Some of you might find you could catch your foot behind you. So just a couple more times, sort of circling. So it's quite nice, this movement, when the knee goes back, of really opening through the front of the hip joint. And then, as you all know, we're sort of edging on into cow legs. So that's it. Eventually, we're going to come and stay in this lovely place where our foot has crossed over our bottom leg. And you see how this feels. Again, remember, if you're feeling very lopsided or there's pressure in your bottom knee, come to here. You bring your foot back to the other side, or you lengthen out your bottom leg. Okay, these are all good options. And do give yourself a wiggle. So that if you're staying in cow legs, you want to feel that you can drop the weight of your pelvis down. A little bit of a wiggle, and then a bit of maybe swinging the arms, turning from side to side. So again, we come back to this feeling of being quite sort of heavy and planted from the waist down and light in the upper body. And then we'll turn towards the top leg and just have a few breaths there. And again, remember, at any point, you know, it's really good to come into cow legs, but it's not good to sort of push it. So at any point you come out, and you can just be pleased that you've sort of visited this movement, but you've not pushed it too far. Come out by leaning back on your arms, uncrossing your legs. But if you want to do your half lotus on this side, then yes, see how it feels to slide this top leg back. You know, because this is why it's good to visit half lotus at this point, because you've sort of gone beyond lotus in cow legs. So, and if half lotus feels okay, obviously if some of you do lotus, you can do that at this point. And if it feels okay, you could fold forwards. But again, if it's like, no, I've had enough, lean back, ease the legs out. Give them a bit of a wobble. So lovely, very nice. And then I think you get to lie down now. So yeah, put on warm things. We're going to do a few movements lying down, some very simple things, and then just some simple quiet breathing lying down. So socks, jumpers, Have your blanket nearby. If you're feeling chilly, you can put your blanket on and move under your blanket. That's fine. Yes, I was going to say, but make sure you're warm. You feel warm. It's a cozy day, and then a cold day where we need to be cozy. Yes, so settle down onto your back, and perhaps when you first arrive on your back, just do whatever you want to do, which might just be lie there. So if there's anything you feel particularly drawn to doing, and then there's a couple of things that I'm going to talk you through. And so this is probably the thing that's hardest to do on our own at home, is to lie down, particularly in the morning. So once you're on your back, once you've settled, I'd like you to feel the weight of your head. So bring your attention to your head. Feel the weight of your head on the floor. And then just start to ease your head to the right and to the left. So very sort of lazy, languid movement, the head rolling from side to side. And from rolling your head from side to side, see if you can find a comfortable place where the center of the back of your head can settle on the floor. You can, that's it, just rest the head there. At that point, then have a big exhalation and see if you can let your shoulders really rest back on the ground. Notice how the back of your neck feels. If it could feel a bit longer or more comfortable, you could pick up your head in your hands, gently lengthen out the back of your neck, and then place the head back onto the floor. Good. And then if your legs are long, bend your knees and stand your feet on the floor. And then come to letting your knees tilt to the right and to the left. That's nice, good. So we often start off with this movement, we're finishing with it today, the knees tilting to the right and to the left, and it can be a small movement or a larger movement, just depending on how you feel. And then just pause for a moment with your legs in the center. And you're going to give yourself a hug. So cross your arms over your chest. Oh, so yeah, not hugging your knees in towards you. Sorry, I was explaining this right. It could be under your blankets. So give yourself a hug. And now you're going to let your elbows and your knees rock in the same, and your head rock in the same direction. So you're doing more of a sort of rolling movement, side to side across the back of your body. Giving yourself a bit of a massage. Lovely. You can just carry on with this as long as you like. That's it. So it feels that you're rolling towards one side and then towards the other. And then you can uncross your arms, and if you feel that you want to rock a bit with the other arm on top, you can do. Otherwise, just uncrossing the arms, settling yourself down. You're bringing your hands onto the front of the body. So you can lie with your knees bent or your legs long. But I think you don't have to have your hands on the front of your body, but I think in order to really help us gather our awareness into our breathing, it's very helpful. And then also this feeling of the hands resting on the front of the body is very soothing and settling. So the hands can feel your body responding to your breathing. The rise and fall of the belly or the ribs. And your belly or ribs, the front of your body feels the warmth and the weight of your hands. So let's, for maybe 3 cycles of breath, just really gather your awareness into the feeling of the breath in the front of your body. And again, as we've been doing at periods through this class, giving yourself this time to feel the inhalation as it moves within you, expands within you. Feeling the exhalation as it empties you. And giving your out-breath time to leave you completely. So for a couple more breaths, that gathering your awareness into the hands, feeling the movement of the breath in the front of your body. And from there, just for the last couple of minutes, you can then let your awareness expand outward from the breathing. So you still keep this sense of your breath moving within you. You can also be aware of the whole of your body, points of your body in contact with the ground, feeling of the air on your skin, maybe the face, the hands. The presence of the other people and animals in the room, in your house. Noises both inside and further away. And just allowing your awareness to be soft and expansive. Letting everything come and go. So thank you, everyone. It's nice to see Atticus and Georgie. This is the animals, of course, the the best time. Mine have all disappeared now, I think. So do unmute yourself if you want to say anything.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.